Welcome to this video, building a RemindMe app with Kivy. In part 2 of this build, we designed the database for our RemindMe app where we covered the mission statement and objective, analyzing the current database, preliminary field list, primary key, identifying method and verifying objectives by writing queries, and finally, through our class diagram. Part 3 of this build is a crucial step for any project that aims to scale. I've noticed that many developers, instead of focusing their energy on creating exciting features, end up struggling with their project structure. In this video, I'll walk you through installing Kivy and setting up a clean and well-organized project structure. So if you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, to comment, and share to support the channel. Code with Eno. Alright, so we'll start by installing our packages. For this build, I'll be using Mac OS, but it should be the same for Windows. I'll try my best to handle any compatibility issues with Windows as we go along. So it is recommended to install your packages in a virtual environment for so many reasons. In the old system, we use VNV, but in this new system, we're going to use UV, which is a Python package manager that is growing rapidly in popularity. It encapsulates pip, VNV, and many more, plus it is pretty fast. So the first thing is what I like to do is to create my folder, the folder where my project will go in, and we can always do that with UV, but I just like to have that folder there. And if I ls, I'm gonna see that I have my my readme, and I have the doc. The doc contains all the planning we've been doing for the previous video, that is the plan and requirement, and also the database design. So the first thing I want to do is to initialize this folder. So I'm gonna say UV init, and I'm gonna use bar here because I don't want all the other folders that come along with UV. I just want the file that contains all the packages that we're going to install. So, and I'm gonna give the name of this virtual environment. So I'm gonna call it RemindMeApp. So once I have that, I can ls and I can see I have the pipe project.l file. How do we pronounce this? Leave that in the comment section. So I have this file contain all the so once I install a package, the name of the package is going to be gonna feature in this file, and also all the dependency of that package. So once I have that, now I can start installing the different packages. So first thing first, I want to have Kivy. So I'm gonna say UV at Kivy. So everything is being installed. So we can see we have that. All the dependency that are linked with Kivy are being installed as well. So if we want to check to see all our packages that are being installed currently, we can do in the if you're just using pip, you can say pip list. But if I do pip list right now, it's gonna list everything. I have everything in my base virtual environment that comes with Anaconda. But with UV, you're gonna say UV pip list, and oh, UV pip list doesn't work. Okay, so I think the virtual environment has been created. So we can, maybe I'll have to source into this virtual environment first. I thought maybe UV will auto detect this virtual environment. So let me do now pip list first. Okay, pip list doesn't work. So UV pip list. Okay, so once I I activate or I source into this virtual environment, I can use UV pip list to see what has been installed currently. All right. So the next one is gonna be to install KivyMD. So I don't actually want to use KivyMD because I think KivyMD is mostly for mobile application, because it is an extension of Kivy design, designed to implement material design principle. Okay, so I think it is mostly for mobile application, but I just want to have it there in case I want to use some of it widgets like calendar, because I've searched for a calendar, a package that implement calendar on the normal Kivy package, I didn't see any, so I had to build mine. So I don't know, maybe there's something that we can enjoy from KivyMD. That is not going to, of course, to jeopardize our design, because we're building a desktop application, not a mobile application. So in this case, we're going to add it. So we can do like these UV ads, just like we did with Kivy. UV add MD, KivyMD, sorry, and everything. So it install Pillow because it depends on Pillow, and we can see here the KivyMD version 1.2 is being installed. I don't think this is a recent version anyway. So we're going to see. We're just going to try just to run a simple application and see what will happen. So for that, I'm going to open my VS Code. Okay, so we're going to test, we're going to write a very simple application. So we can see so far this is what we have. So this is a folder that was added, and we can see we install Kivy and we install KivyMD. Okay, so in order to see all the dependency that were installed alongside these packages, we can go to the uv.log and we can see all the other dependency that were installed alongside the different packages. So we can see them here. Okay, all the other dependency. And another thing we can do, still at the level of the command, we can say uv3, and it's going to list all the packages and their dependency in a tree-like structure, so it is easy to see. All right, so let's come back to our project. So here I'm gonna create just a main.py because I just want to test my Kivy installation. So from Kivy, KivyMD.app, because we're using KivyMD, I'm gonna import just let's say MD app, because that's what our application is going to inherit. Okay, so from KivyMD.uix.label, import MD label. So we have our main class, we're gonna call it main app, and it's gonna take the MD app, and here in the build we're gonna return just the MD label, and the text here is gonna be hello world, simple, and it's gonna be aligned, so horizontally align, center. Okay, all right, so here we have this. Just make sure that we can run it as a module, even though it's not really necessary, but it's good practice, so we're gonna run this. All right, so let's go ahead and start our application. So with our UV, we can start our application by using the UV run. Okay, UV run -m, and we can call the name of the package the name of the module that we want to run. When we say UV run, UV is going to identify the virtual environment and activate it. Okay, but right now our virtual environment is activated, so it's not going to cause any issue. So what I'm saying is that if I just deactivate this, so we can see it's been deactivated, and we say UV run -m main, we can see that it still runs because it was able to detect the virtual environment. Okay, so for the first time, Kivy is going to take some time to run, and subsequently it's going to be faster. So looking at the errors, we can see that it has something with the label folder. It says the label folder is not found, so probably it's an error with that version of KivyMD. So what we're going to do is that we're going to remove it. So UV remove KivyMD. All right, so the recommended way to install KivyMD is from the GitHub repository. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use UV and add and paste it here, and let's see what will happen. probably is going to so we can see it installed it alongside many dependency. Of course, this one was already installed. So let's see now what will happen. So if I say uv run -m main, okay, so apparently it failed again, and we can see it has something to do with this property. And this property h align, so the spelling here is wrong, so it has to be horizontally aligned, something like this. Okay, so once we have that, we can run it again and see. Hopefully this time around it's gonna be okay. So python -m main. All right, so we have this. Okay, so right now we can see that everything works as required. We don't have any issue here regarding the version of KivyMD. Alright, so here we're going to analyze our old version to see what's going on with the structure and see how we can improve it in our new version. So the .vnv here was represent our virtual environment, and it was created using VNV. And of course, comparing VNV with UV, we can see that UV is faster, and also some of the issues that UV tried to address is that you can easily identify packages that depend on other packages using VNV. And also, to support multiple environment like dev, production, and staging, you have to create multiple versions of your requirement here, for example. But with the UV, you track everything in your one file, the tom.l file. Okay. All right, so moving down to the assets, let's see. We can see the assets here contain static folders, things like fonts and images, you know, audio files. But we can see all of them are just scattered in the working directory. We can see here contains the sound that we're using for our alert, and here contain the images that we're using, and this one contain the font. So the in our new version, we're going to group all of this in one folder, and we're going to call them assets. Now moving on to our source, we can see here we have the DB. The DB folder here contains everything that has to do with the database. I think it is pretty okay. This folder is okay for now. We're going to use the same folder in our new version. Here we have the model. So since we'll be using SQL Alchemy, this folder is going to contain the definition of our table. And here we have, we'll no longer use this SQL because here it contains raw SQL. Okay, so but we are going to use SQL Alchemy for that. And here it contains connection to our database. It is being made singleton, so that we don't need to create this an instance of this database many times. So here we have also the schema and so on. So I think this database folder is pretty okay. So we're gonna use the same as this in our new version. And we can see for the old version, somehow I separated the Kivy language files from the Python files, so we can see. But I don't think this way of structuring Kivy application is the best. So what we're going to do is that we're going to, if we're working with screens, we're going to create different screens, and everything will be placed in the folder that represents that screen. But in this case, we're not going to use screen, we're going to use tab and tab panels. So each tab is going to contain the Kivy language file and the Python files and every other things that that helps to run that particular tabs. So we are not going to separate them like we did in this old version. Also, we can see services. There are some services that are just dumped in this in this source folder. For example, the scheduler help us to schedule event, and also we have the audio help us to play sound, okay, when an event is triggered. So these are like services, so we want to make sure that we have them in one folder called services. That's what we're going to do for the new version. And of course, we have the makefile. The makefile here contains shortcuts to some commands. We're going to use this as well. And here we're going to have, instead of having the normal Python way of running things, we're going to use UV. we can have other commands also for Python for those who don't like to use UV as well. And for the requirement, we are not going to use the requirement for the file anymore, because we have the file that was created by UV, the file that track all the packages that is being installed. So we're going to use that instead. And of course the git ignore that we're going to use to ignore some of the files and folders that we don't want to be tracked in GitHub, sorry. And here we have the .env that contain the environment variables. Of course, we're going to maintain this as well, because this contains information. For example, this contains information about the database because we're using PostgreSQL. But since we're not going to use PostgreSQL anymore, we are going to use SQLite. I don't think we'll need any secret information to connect to our database. So hopefully we're not going to need this, but if we need it, then we're going to add it as well. All right, so that's it about the structure of our old project. So now let's see how the new project is being structured. Alright, so for the new system, we will try to fix some issues encountered in the old system so that we won't be stuck because of bad project structure. So we're going to start with the assets. Okay, so we saw in our old system where the assets were just scattered in the working directory. So here we're going to create a folder called assets, and the asset is going to contain a few folders. So one is going to be for the fonts. Of course, we're going to set the fonts of our Kivy project, and the second one is going to be for images, and also the last one is going to be for sound. Okay, so that's going to be our asset. Now the next one is going to be let's see, we're going to maintain the readme, we're going to maintain the so here we don't have the requirements.txt anymore, so we have the pipe projects. This is gonna be used to, to track our packages. And after that, we're going to have our source folder. So the source folder, we're gonna start by putting our .init file. Okay, so that Python can recognize it as a package or as a module. I don't know. So here we have the first thing we want to talk about is the DB folder. So the DB folder, in our previous example, or in our old project, we said this is going to take care of everything that has to do with the database. So here I'm going to have a file called config that we're going to use to configure our database. Whatever needs to be configured for our database is going to fall in this config.py. And in the DB, we are going to have the models folder. So the model folder is going to contain the table definition for our SQL Alchemy. Okay, and after that we're going to have repositories. Okay, so this is going to contain it's going to sit between the SQLite database and our application, definitely. So it's going to contain command for SQLite command, SQL Alchemy commands for retrieving, for inserting, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's it about our database or our DB folder. And the next one is going to be services. We talked about services in the old in our old structure. So here we're going to have for audio, that's going to take care of running playing sounds, and we're going to have the scheduler that's going to help us to schedule events. So for now we have just these two services, and the next one is going to be the util. So I'm going to put the util folder here. So for now, what do we have in our util? We can have things like constants. Oops, this is gonna be a Python a module, so let's rename that really quick. .py. So it's gonna contain all our constant, and we're gonna have a helper module here. And yeah, so for now we're gonna have just these two. And next up, we're gonna have the view. Now we are using view here because we are not dealing with screens. Okay, So in a different project, I'm going to show you how to use strings, how to structure your project with strings. But here we're going to use tabs panel and tabs items. So for now, I'm not going to name them as strings because it's going to confuse a lot of us. So we're going to use instead views. So we'll make sure the views folder is inside the source, of course. And right now in this view, we're going to have the different views that we need to have. Okay. So the first thing we're going to have is the base panel. So the base panel is going to contain, like, it's going to be the main interface, the main UI that's going to contain all the different tab items. So we're going to call it the base item here. And in the base item, we're going to have the base.py and the base.kivy. Okay, like I said, everything will be arranged such that each item or each panel has its Kivy file and its Python file. So we're not going to separate them like we did in the old structure. So after we have our base, that's going to be our base panel. Okay, so we're going to now start having our item. We're going to have our home item, the home item, and in the home item, of course, we're going to have the home.py and the home.kivy. Okay, and the next tab we're going to have is going to be the list reminder item. So the list reminder item is going to have the list reminder.py and the list reminder.kivy. Okay, so next up, what we're going to have is the @reminder item. Gonna have the @reminder.py and the @reminder.kivy. And last but not least, we're going to have our time tracker item. It's gonna have the time tracker.py and time tracker.kivy. Okay, and still in the source, we're gonna have another folder called winget. So definitely, if it is good practice to have a folder called winget, or to have something similar to this. That will be used to place all the custom winget that you're going to build, or all the winget you're going to customize. Okay, so that this customized winget will be used throughout the different views. Okay, so if we decide to customize the button, for example, or we decide to customize, I don't know, one of the wingets of Kivy, we can put them here, then we reuse them throughout the different views that we have here. So this folder is going to remain here. And I think so far so good. We have the last one, of course, out of our source folder, we're going to have the make file. So it's going to contain some shortcuts, okay, so that we don't need to always write those shortcuts. We don't need to write those long commands. Okay, so we're going to use the shortcuts in this case. All right, so that's it about our new structure. Okay, so we have our structure, and we are going to just build the base panel, okay, just to make sure that our structure is able to support the kind of project we're trying to build. Okay, so we're gonna go to the main.py and we're gonna add a few things. First thing we're gonna add is the windows. So yeah, we can use the window to control like the size of our window and so on and so forth. So we're going to reshape our window using this window component. Of course, this component needs to be created just once. The object needs to be created just once. So I guess this would have been good to make it singleton, okay, rather than, you know, informing people about it and, you know, not restricting it to be singleton. So I think it should be singleton, but we're going to use just one version of an instance, just an instance of this particular window class. Okay, and the next thing I'm gonna import is gonna be from Kivy.util. I'm gonna import get color get color from hex. So in Kivy we have two ways in which we can add colors to our graphics or to our UI. Okay, we can add it using the normal RGB format, which is supported by Kivy by default, or we can use the hex string. So the hex string is not supported, so we need this class to transform the hex string to an object that Kivy can understand. So we're gonna use this, and I think that's it. So right now I'm gonna just above here, I'm gonna resize our, so we're gonna resize our window to, let's say, 300 to 500. I think that's what we had for our old system. And yeah, so let's run this and see, make sure we don't have any issues so far. Okay, and before we run this, let's, in our make file, let's put, let's say start, let's put our shortcut. So it's gonna be uv python-m main. It's gonna be uv run, sorry. All right, so this is what we have. Okay, so let's see how we can change the color, the color of the windows. So just right down here we can use window dot clear color, and we're gonna use the get hex, and inside the strings we're gonna say let's just put some numbers here. I don't know if it's gonna work. I want that the number should represent something so that it can give us an interface to kind of like get. Okay, good. So we can now see if we can adjust. So I think it should be a little bit lighter. Okay, something like that. Okay, so with that we can now test it again. Okay, so now we see the hello world is now visible. Okay, all right, so perfect. Okay, so now let's start building our main panel. So we're going to go to the source, and in the views we're gonna have, in the base panel, we're gonna start with the base.py, where we're gonna import, the first one we're gonna import from Kivy lang is the builder. So the builder is going to help us to link the Kivy language file to our Python file. So we can also import from URX.create layout, import the create layout. So the create layout is basically a layout or a winget that arranges a content in a matrix. So it takes the space and divides it into columns and rows. So we're gonna use the create layout for our main UI. So the next one is gonna be from the kivy.urx.tab panel, import tab panel. So this tab panel manages different wingets, winget in tabs. Okay, so with a header area for the actual tab, and we have also buttons that we can use to switch between the different tabs. So we're gonna use this for our, to control all the different tabs that we have. Okay, so the next one we're gonna do is to link our Kivy language. So we're gonna say builder, I hope, oh, this is supposed to be builder with uppercase. All right, so builder dot load file, and we're going to load this particular Kivy language file. All right, so to do that, I'm going to make sure that I have a base path that we can use to easily navigate through our application. So the base path is going to be a constant. So where do we put constants? We're going to go to the util, and down here we're going to put our constant. So we're going to use the path lib, the path from path lib, to build our constant. So base path, constant are always uppercase, okay? it's good to have them uppercase. So we're gonna reference this current file and we're gonna resolve it so that we have a path to this particular file. Then we're gonna go one parent up. One parent up is gonna take us to the util. We go again one parent up. It's gonna take us to the source. We go again one parent up. It takes us to the working directory. So it means that this base path is a path to our working directory. From here now we can navigate throughout the different files that we or folders that we want. So I'm gonna save that and go back to our base and import it somewhere here from source.util.constant import base path. Okay, so we're gonna cast the base, everything that's gonna come in here into a string. This is because I'm not sure this guy takes in a path object. We can see here the type here is a string, so we're gonna cast everything into a string. So from the base directory we're gonna go to the source, and from the source we're gonna go to the views, and from the views we're gonna go to the base panel, and from the base panel we're gonna go to the base.kivy. All right, so here we're going to create the class of the main class of our UI. Okay, that's going to contain the tab panel and all the different tabs. Okay, so here we're going to call it base create. So we want to use a create layout for this. We can use box layout as well, but here I just decided to use create, and it's going to inherit the create layout. And for now I'm going to just say pass because I don't want anything to be there. And now in our Kivy language, we are going to try to add some UI logic to our create layout. So the thing about Kivy is that we can add logic at the level of the Python file. We can also add logic at the level of the Kivy file. So what I like to do is that I like to add UI related logic to the Kivy file and non-UI related logic to the Python file. So here I'm gonna say since I want to add UI related logic, so I'm gonna try to access this class that was created here. I can just copy it just to avoid typos. Okay, now we can do this because you know they are the base Kivy file is being linked here, so we have linked it to our Python file, so we can actually refer to this in our Kivy language and add logic, UI related logic basically. So since it is a grid layout, I'm gonna say define the column, so it's gonna be column 1. I'm gonna leave the row to be default, which is just one row as well. I think this one the default 1 as well, so I'm gonna test it and see, but let's just keep 1 here. And we can define the size. So the size is gonna be the same as our windows, so that's why we say root is gonna be the same as our windows, and that's it. Height, I hope. Okay, so now right now we want to have a header on the top. Okay, just like our old system, we want to have a header, and the header is gonna be a simple label, and the label is gonna have a text called RemindMeApp. Basically the same thing as we had with our old system. And the background color for this label is gonna be, so basically here we are using in the main.py we use the hex string, but right now here we're gonna use the RGB. Okay, and we know that the RGB basically uses the 0 to 1 range. In Kivy it uses the 0 to 1 range, and Kivy uses float, of course, 0.1, 1.0. okay, so you have to fluctuate between 0.1 and 1.0. but if you have a color from 0 to 255, because 255 is 8 bits and that's how color is being represented, so you have to divide it. Okay, you have to divide in whatever number you have by 255 for it to fall between the range of 0.0 and 1.0. So in this case, what color do we have? We want to have 2 here. So for example, if I want to have 2 and 77, for example, and 17, okay, and 1 here, because we're using the RGB A, so the one there represent A. And since I have this, I'm going to divide them by 255 each for me to have this, so that it will fall in the range of 0 to 1. Okay, the A does not, we don't actually divide the A. Okay, so we just divide the RGB, this one. Okay, so now we have set the background color of our label. So now I want to set the height. Now in Kivy we have two ways of setting the height. We can use the size hint Y, or we can use the height like this. But you can use these two at the same time. So if you want to use this one, you have to make sure this guy is set to none. Or if you want to use this guy down here, you have to make sure this guy is set to none. Okay, so in this case, I want to use this guy down here. So I'm going to make sure this one here is set to none. And here I can use it. And I'm going to use the DP, which is the display pixel. I think display pixel. So it is actually recommended to use the display panel so that the measurement of your winget may look almost the same for all devices. Okay, different desktop and of mobile devices and so on and so forth. So we're gonna use the DP, the display pixel in this case. Okay, so now we want to handle our graphics, that is at the background color. Okay, because this background color basically is not going to have any effect right now. Okay, because in order to add graphics in your winget like a label, you need to use the canvas. So yeah, what I just did is I just defined this, okay, as a variable, and it's going to be referenced in the canvas. So in order to add graphics like color, you have to use canvas. Okay, and canvas comes in three different formats. We have the canvas before, and canvas after. So yeah, I'm going using the canvas before because I want the canvas, whatever is going to be fall under the canvas, to be applied before anything else in the label. Okay, so we're going to have the color. So the color is going to use the RGBA, and it's going to reference the background color that I defined above here. Okay, and we want to try to position our canvas. So we're going to use the rectangle, and the size is going to be the size of the surf here is going to be the size of the label. Okay, and the position is going to be positioned the same as that of the label as well. Okay, so we have that for our label. Now we can add other things. We have still at the level of the label, we can add the color. I would like to have some colors there, and let's try 111 for now. I think 111, I don't know, is gonna be white, and we can make it bold and italic, and we handle the outline color. Okay, the outline color, and then the outline width is gonna be 10. And I think pretty much does it. So the last thing I'm gonna do is to handle the font size. So the font size, I want it to be dynamic, meaning that when I reshape this, when I reshape the structure of our windows, it's gonna reflect, it's gonna increase and reduce based on how I reshape my window. So in order to make it dynamic, we need to first reference the parent width, that is the width of the root, and we can divide it by 10. So as this width is changing, it's going to be divided by 10, and it's going to also change accordingly. So basically that's what we have. And so in order for this to be reflected in our Kivy windows, we need to come back to the main.py and import it here. Then instead of rendering this MD language, this MD label, we're going to render instead our grid layout. So here I'm going to say from source dot views dot base panel dot base. Oh, I want to import, or I'm gonna say dot base import base grid layout. So now here, instead of this, I'm gonna return this base grid layout. All right, so let's try this and see what will happen. Hopefully we don't have any errors. Perfect. So this is what we have. All right, so we can see as I'm changing the Windows color is changing as well. Okay, perfect. Okay, so perfect. We can see that it doesn't really give us a nice font. Okay, so we can see if we run it again, we can see that the font is not really good. All right, so we're going to set the font for our entire project, and to do that we can download a good font from the internet. So I don't know, we can use Fonts Google or any other website where you can download your font. So if I use what I usually use, that font is what I usually use, and from here I would like to download the same font I use for my old system because I think it is pretty cool. So it was let me see if I can remember. So it was Roboto. All right, so this is a font that I use in my old system. So you can change it if you want to, but we can go ahead and download this. Okay, so once we download it, we can include it in our project. So I already downloaded this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do the changes. All right, so I have it down. I had it downloaded already, so I added it in my font folder, so we can see the different version of my Roboto font. So we have for the bolds, we have for the bold italic, we have italic light, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna use that, and in order to use that, we will go to our util helper. So in this util helper, we're going to just kind of like build a function that is responsible for loading this particular font. Okay, so in order to do that, we need the label base from Kivy. Kivy.core.text imports label base. Basically, this label base, we can see from the documentation that the core text label can be changed. No, core text label, this is the abstract class used by different backend to render text. Okay, so we're going to use this to kind of like set our font. Okay, because this is going to be kind of like inherited by all the different text winget that we're going to use. Okay, so we want to make sure we set the font in there. And also, in order to access our font from this asset folder, we need the path to that. Okay, we need to have the path to this particular folder. So we're going to use the base path that we define in our constant. So from source.util.constant import base path. Okay, so we're gonna call it load fonts. Pretty cool name. And the path to our font is gonna be this base path. From the base path, which is the working directory, we'll move to the assets. From the asset, we move to the font. And from the font, we move to the Roboto folder. So that is the path to our font. So now we're gonna modify the label base. So we're gonna register in the label base, we're gonna register our font. So the name is gonna be Roboto. That's the name of our font. And for a regular text, we're gonna use, you know, we have the different types here. So for a regular text, we're gonna use let's say let's use the thing version. Okay, so it's gonna be roboto thing.ttf. all right, now for the bold version, we're gonna use the bold. Okay, this bold here. So I'm gonna just copy this and put it down here and say bold. Hopefully that's the only thing that changes there. And for the italic version, so I'm gonna just copy all of this. For the italic version, I'm gonna use the italic, of course. Okay, so perfect. So I think this should be good for now. If we need more, we're gonna add them as time goes. So I'm gonna import this to my main.py because this is where I control the windows and so on. So down here I'm gonna say from source.util.helper import this guy. Now once I import it, I'm going to set it. Okay, so I have to set it somewhere here before the main application runs. I have to set it here, so it's gonna be loads. Gonna just call it like this, okay, to set it up. Okay, for some reason it may not work if I put it somewhere here. Okay, so you can try it out, but I think I did that for my old version and it did not work, so I had to put it down here. Okay, so with that, let's see what will happen. So we're gonna run our project again. Oh, so we have some errors here. Okay, at the level of the register, file 0 not found. Okay, so let's see what happened. So we're gonna go back to our loads file, and the spelling here may not be okay. So here it is roboto and here it is robots. So there's no to in there, robot or robot. All right, so let me put them there and making sure everything is fine. Bold, thing, and italic. All right, so let's run it again and let's see. All right, perfect. So we have this. All right, so that's it for the third part of this series. In our next video, we establish our tab panel and item, the building blocks of our application. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share to support the channel. Code with Eno.